Uh, the six proposals really a collection of things that we've been looking at Central Council for a while now, and much of it is as a result of various kinds of feedbacks that we are getting. And so some of it is to be done so that we close kind of loopholes. Others will be done or implemented so that we can more consistently apply our rules. And some others will address things that are actually not fully or properly covered in the manual. So, all right. As you can see, I'll be addressing 7 changes. The 6 of them are technical, and the 7th, the Handicappers Manual, really is addressing how these things can or should be implemented following our bylaws. Just from the titles, I think I don't need to read them, so I just cut right into the individual proposals. This one is an interesting one because it popped up as I was thinking about the point-to-point race, the new point-to-point race handicap proposal. And the proposal itself changes the Centerline fixed sprint credit from +6 seconds a mile to +3 seconds a mile for all the central sprint class boats and conversions. And part of the proposal is that since we don't want to, I don't want to change the ASPs for the classes that were handicapped with their standard sprints. The ASP will remain unchanged, and we will adjust the SPs almost as a bookkeeping process. The CDP converted modified boats shall keep their SP unchanged. In other words, they'll get a little bit, 3 seconds more less credit in their handicap. The explanation is that the point-to-point handicap rule change proposal included a -6 second mile penalty for CDP class conversions and a 3 seconds per mile for the classes designed with a fixed sprint. And this was inconsistent in penalizing the conversions with the shorter sprints more than the longer sprints in the classes like J105s, 109s, J80s, etc. And so the impact will be that we will have no change in the class configured boats in the ASP for windward leeward races, but it will reduce the CDP penalty for point-to-point handicaps from -6 to -3 seconds a mile. Now I'm speaking a little bit ahead of time because you were not shown the point-to-point race proposal yet. But with the understanding what's going on and what's going to happen there, I'm proposing this. And the CDP conversions will enjoy 3 seconds a mile less credit for the windward leeward races and reduced penalties for the point-to-point races. Are there any questions?
So Adam, I have one question from Andy Sharp at Alcott. Could you please define, and Jamie or I could cover this, I guess, what is exactly considered a point-to-point race?
Please go ahead.
Do you want to cover that one, Jamie?
I can, or you can. The point-to-point race, or rule for the point-to-point adjustment, there's a definition in the motion actually from last year. But basically, it covers any race greater than 6 nautical miles where there is not an even number of upwind, downwind legs. In other words, if you're racing around fixed marks that do not give you an even upwind, downwind, if you're doing 4 reaches across a harbor or something like that, is what it's designed for. Do you want to add anything, Owen?
No, I couldn't have defined it better myself. Okay, I think that covers that.
So are there any questions? By the way, just, yeah, are there any questions? Yeah.
Ron said, what is the rationale for this? Is this those boats are likely to excel in these races?
The rationale is that we should have an even hand when we are applying the point-to-point race handicap penalty for boats with sprits that will excel in distance racing. And since the original proposal showed that the central split classes would benefit from 6 seconds a mile. No, sorry, would only be hit with a 3 seconds a mile penalty as opposed to 6 seconds a mile for the converted classes, which usually have a shorter split. I thought the very least we can do to even the penalty for both type of boats for point-to-point racing. And with the impact, of course, for the windward leeward courses, that the small adjustments will have to be done to the converted boats. So their advantage is a little bit less.
Oops, there's one more question. So Randy St. Jacques, do we have a number of these converted boats and the class boats? So I guess you're asking for totals.
I don't have the answer to that.
Owen, can I pop in for a minute here for history for everybody?
Sure, please.
For those that don't remember, when we first started seeing asymmetrical sprits being applied to non-asymmetrical boats, such as a CNC 35 or something like that, there was a +6 second per mile adjustment put on them to cover them for windward leeward racing because they could not sail as deep downwind as they could as their base symmetrical rig. Now that we're doing a point-to-point credit adjustment for racing point-to-point, that credit doesn't apply as much because you're doing much more beam reaching and broad reaching, so the credit should not be as high, if anybody's wondering.
So I just responded back to that question. We can figure out what the numbers are of how many boats and all of that when we have some time to do that. So, and Randy's okay with that answer, so good.
Mr. Larkamp has a question. I'm not sure if it was addressed. It was, what would happen when a converted boat gets an SP change and then converts back to no centerline tack point?
Is Mr. Larkamp unable to use the Q&A because I'm monitoring that? Just, that's a question for the gang of us. So would you like to ask that one, Adam? And I will, oh yeah, here it is. He is, now I can see you. What would happen when a converted boat gets an SP change, then converts back to no CPT?
Well, then we will use the rules that are currently in effect, and the boat will be handicapped based on the symmetrical spinnaker measurements and lose the credit for the centerline split.
Yeah, essentially, normal perf handicapping rules will be applied. So the boat will get rated in the configuration that's being used.
The SP will not change.
No,